America's real borders aren't lines on a map. They're where the lights don't turn off. Take a look at the map of the United States. Clean, bright, state borders neatly drawn, clusters of cities. Now flip it. Dark mode. The colors drain away. The borders fade away. The states disappear into darkness. All that's left is black space and clusters of light. Dense, connected, and unbroken. From space, America doesn't look like 50 states. It looks like a handful of massive organisms, pulsing and alive, separated by a black void. Now zoom out. Spot anything? The dark areas stay dark, but the bright areas never turn off. Those glowing clusters aren't just cities. They're something bigger. They're megaregions. We've spent 200 years focused on the United States, but the reality on the ground is that the country has organized itself into 11 different megaregions. And these glowing webs of light are hiding a massive shift in power that is about to erase the state lines you grew up with. A megaregion isn't a single city. It isn't a suburban sprawl. It is a massive, continuous network of cities, suburbs, and infrastructure that functions as one shared economic system. Inside a megaregion, millions of people live, work, and move across dozens of cities as if they were neighborhoods of the same place. The defining feature is integration. These areas share labor markets, transportation systems, supply chains, power grids, water supplies, and digital infrastructure. A person might live in one city, work in another, and depend on services that are spread across an entire region. Megaregions form when distance essentially collapses. Travel time drops, communication becomes a constant, separate cities begin to merge into one. Over time, they stop competing with each other and begin operating together. That's the key difference. Cities compete. Megaregions cooperate not through choice, but by necessity. If you take a look at the map, you'll see that the 11 zones only take a small fraction of America's landmass, less than 20%, but they hold over 70% of the population. They generate more than 75% of the wealth. These are the places where the lights never turn off, the zones that have taken over the rest of the country. If you don't live in one of these clusters now, the chances are you will by 2040. They're swallowing up the country's talent, money, and political power. The empty spaces are just a dark backdrop. The growth of these 11 regions is constant and aggressive, pushing the limits of just how much space a single urban area can take up. Look at the Northeast for an example, a 500-mile-long stretch called Boswash. It's a massive glowing path that starts in the forests of Maine and doesn't stop until it slams into northern Virginia. 53 million people are packed together in this cluster, more than the entire population of Spain. It functions as the global headquarters for the money on Wall Street to the power in DC. You can ride a train for hours and almost never lose sight of a skyscraper. And it's not the only one. Look west to see how the Great Lakes region has changed. It used to be an old factory belt. Now it's a massive industrial heartland. It links Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. But it doesn't stop at the border. It is economically fused with Ottawa, Montreal, and Quebec City. It's a cross-border giant of water-heavy industry and shipping. This connection to Canada shows that megaregions do not just ignore state lines, they ignore national borders too. Near Pittsburgh, the lights of the Great Lakes are beginning to brush up against the western edge of the Northeast. It's the birth of a mega region. While the North is about being crowded and having history, the New South and the West are about to explode. These areas are moving so fast that the maps can barely keep up. The Texas Triangle pins the points of Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, and San Antonio, with Austin sitting in the middle. It holds over 20 million people and is growing faster than almost any other zone. It functions like its own country within a state, a powerhouse of space travel, energy, and computer chips. Along the Pacific, Southern California has moved beyond Hollywood. It's a 25 million person gateway for global trade, stretching from the San Diego border up through LA and Santa Barbara. It's increasingly bleeding eastward into the Nevada desert towards Las Vegas. It's the busiest shipping gateway in the Western Hemisphere. The amount of goods flowing through these ports is enough to supply the entire continent with everything it needs. And if you like these map dives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Megaregions keep growing, and so should this channel. Further north, Northern California has become the global brain center. Centering on the San Francisco Bay Area and spilling all the way into Sacramento, this is the capital of artificial intelligence and tech. It's a region defined by the closeness of its talent. The rest of the country is forming into chains of development that link different industries together. These chains act like a safety net, ensuring that if one city struggles, the others can pull it back up. The Florida Corridor is a chain link of development connecting Miami's finance hub to the tourism magnets of Orlando and the space tech of the Atlantic coast. The Piedmont Atlantic is the engine of the New South. It's a banking and research path that stretches from Atlanta through Charlotte and up to the Research Triangle in Raleigh-Durham. The Gulf Coast is an energy and chemical heart that runs from Houston through New Orleans to Mobile. These are high-speed loops of human activity that never stop moving. But this wasn't part of some grand master plan. It wasn't dreamed up in the 50s as part of a boardroom brainstorm. It was a messy, natural change driven by geography, money, and a constant need for speed. To understand how we got here, we have to look at the shocks that pulled these cities together in the first place. Back in 1790, the idea of a megaregion would seem like a dream. Back then, cities weren't connected. They were pretty isolated. If you lived in Philadelphia, New York City might as well have been on the moon. A trip between the two took days of bumpy carriage rides over muddy paths. The first megaregion wasn't born from politics. It was born from infrastructure. First came water. The Erie Canal in 1825 didn't just move grain, it locked New York City's future to the Midwest. Then came the railroad, turning days into hours and shrinking entire regions into a single economic system. And after World War II, the real megaregion boom began with the arrival of the car. Because in 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act unleashed 41,000 miles of high-speed roads, and suddenly the in-between exploded. Before the interstate, you lived where you worked. After it, suburbia spread outward. Commuting stretched farther, and cities stopped acting like isolated hubs and started behaving like one connected machine. Each of these inventions didn't just connect cities, they made them dependent on each other. And once that happens, the map stops being about borders and starts being about pressure. This created the suburban takeover. As people moved out of the crowded city centers to find a yard and a white picket fence, the cities began to spread outward. Look at a map of the Great Lakes or the Northeast from this era. The empty space between Philadelphia and Trenton, or between Chicago and Milwaukee, began to fill with houses, shopping malls, and gas stations. The highways turned these regions into long, continuous paths of movement. The cities were no longer separate dots. They were a single blurred line, one that would keep growing. While the North was sticking together through highways, the South and West were changed forever by the invention of indoor cooling. Before the 1950s, places like Phoenix, Miami, and Houston were seasonal. They were too hot, too swampy, or too harsh for huge year-round populations. Air conditioning sparked one of the largest moves in United States history. Without the ability to control the temperature inside, the modern South would simply not exist. Millions left the Great Lakes Rust Belt for the Sun Belt, fueling the fast rise of new megaregions like the Texas Triangle, the Florida Corridor, and the Arizona Sun Corridor. Now we're in an even bigger shift: digital expansion. We've gone from the commuter to the mega worker, where hybrid work stretches the practical work radius from about 30 miles to between 100 and 150 miles. The result is simple. People can live further away, but their money, jobs, and daily life are still tied to the same regional economy. This is why towns like Princeton, Texas, or the outskirts of Sacramento, California, are seeing record growth. They're being swallowed by the megaregion's pull. A software engineer for a company in Austin might live 2 hours away in the hill country, but they're still spending their money in the Texas Triangle. They still use the Austin airport. They're still part of that regional living organism. Because of these shocks, the 11 megaregions have become like giant economic vacuums. They're not just growing, they're sucking the lifeblood out of the rest of the country. These regions are more connected like chains. If one link breaks, the rest feel it. But there's even bigger problems now. The brain drain loop. Megaregions offer the highest pay and the best networking. The smartest young people from rural areas move there. Companies follow because that's where the talent is. The megaregion gets even wealthier, pulling in even more talent. The 11 megaregions are now solid blocks of power. They're self-sustaining. But if these 11 megaregions are so powerful, if they have the money, the tech, and the hunger to expand, why haven't they merged? Why is the entire United States not just one continuous glow of light from New York to San Francisco? They've hit a problem that even money can't fix. Let's take a look at NASA's Black Marble satellite image. Between those 11 glowing islands of humanity lie vast, dark gaps. These aren't just empty spots, they're active physical barriers, no-go zones for urban growth. The Front Range megaregion, anchored by Denver and Colorado Springs, is currently one of the fastest-growing spots in the country. It's wealthy, it's high-tech, and expanding. But to its west sits the massive, rocky back of the Rockies. No matter how much money is in Denver, it can't pave over a mountain peak. The lack of flat land and the brutal winters mean that the Front Range will never join with Cascadia or Northern California. Nature has drawn a hard line in the dirt. The Rockies ensure that the West remains a collection of outposts rather than a single linked web. Another invisible but powerful blockage is the rain cliff that begins at the 100th meridian. If you look at a population map, there is a clear vertical cliff that runs right down the center of the country. To the east of this line, the lights are crowded. To the west, the map goes dark. This is where the rain stops. Water is the one thing no city can survive without, and the West simply doesn't have enough of it. Everything east of this line gets enough moisture from the Gulf of America, formerly the Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic to support massive, sprawling populations. West of this line, you enter the high plains. Without multi-billion-dollar water projects, the land simply can't support a megaregion. You can drive for 8 hours through Nebraska or Kansas and never hit a cluster large enough to be called mega. In the Southwest, the desert acts as a natural moat that prevents the different hubs from ever touching. The Southern California megaregion and the Arizona Sun Corridor are separated by only a few hundred miles of mostly flat land. But those miles are some of the most hostile on Earth. The Mojave and Sonoran deserts act as a physical off-switch for urban sprawl. The heat is so intense that it creates a barrier more effective than any fence. Sure, high-speed trains will eventually bridge this gap, but the desert makes sure that there will never be a continuous strip from LA to Phoenix. The lack of water is a hard ceiling on how far these regions can spread. The Appalachian Mountains act as a smaller but still very effective speed bump for development in the east. While these mountains aren't as tall as the Rockies, the terrain is thick, the valleys are narrow, and the soil is rugged. In the 1700s, they stopped the pioneers. Today, they stop the mega-joining. The land forces our roads, our power lines, and rails into narrow paths. This is why, despite being relatively close, the financial powerhouse of New York and the banking hub of Charlotte remain two distinct units. The mountains act as a friction point, slowing down the movement of people and keeping the two regions from fusing into one giant East Coast super region. Then there's the Mississippi River, the lifeblood of American trade, but it's also a massive divider. The floodplains surrounding the river are some of the most fertile on the planet. The wetland of the Mississippi Basin creates an empty spot between the Great Lakes and the Piedmont Atlantic. The river demands its space, and humans have learned the hard way not to build too close. Nature has effectively reserved this land for farming. You can't build a 50-story skyscraper on a delta that wants to be underwater every 10 years. This creates a natural greenbelt that keeps the industrial north and the suburban south separated. If you live in Cascadia, your life is defined by the Pacific and the forests. If you live in the Texas Triangle, your life is defined by the heat and the prairie. Each island develops its own way of thinking based on the land it sits upon. Geography isn't just stopping the takeover, it's shaping the personality of each region. But what happens when the megaregions reach their limit? The cities have become like giant magnets for money and talent, but this success is starting a silent war that could leave half the country behind. Each megaregion is fighting for the most valuable resource on the planet, Human talent. This is a fight for the future where the prize is the smartest people and the most innovative ideas. In this new landscape, if you aren't growing, you're being consumed. And this takeover has a dark side. The promise of a bigger stage, specialized venture capital, and a bigger paycheck is too much for most to turn down. As the best and brightest depart towns and smaller cities, they leave behind communities that are not just older and poorer, but stripped of the very people required to solve those problems. The data shows a clear two-speed America. While the mega regions see a surge, the areas in between face a terminal population crisis. This creates a devastating loop. As people leave, businesses follow, which further empties out the local economy. This leaves many small towns wondering if they have a future at all, or if they're destined to become ghost zones. The growth of these regions across state lines has led to the rise of mega governance. Because the mega region's economy doesn't care about the border between New Jersey and New York, or Indiana and Illinois, the people running these areas are beginning to bypass state capitals altogether. They're forming super agreements to manage the massive systems, water, power, and transit that keep the region alive. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative in the Northeast shows how states are starting to act like regional blocks, managing carbon across the Boswash Corridor. Transportation is moving the same way. In the Texas Triangle, private developers are pushing for high-speed rail that could link Dallas and Houston in 90 minutes, turning the two cities into a single economic unit. And hybrid work is accelerating the shift. More people are moving into the deep suburbs while staying tied to the same mega-regional economy, creating stronger regional identities. People are defining themselves by their cluster instead of their state. But a sudden shift is about to force millions of people to move back to the north. By 2050, the maps of the 20th century will be collectibles. The takeover will be complete. America will no longer be a nation that has mega-regions. It will be a nation that is a collection of 11 super-linked mega-regions separated by a vast, automated service zone. Technology will have built high-speed bridges over the gaps that once kept us apart. We're already seeing the first signs. High-speed rail and self-driving transport paths are turning travel into a high-speed event. When you can move from a quiet home in the desert to a boardroom in Los Angeles faster than you can currently drive across town, the two regions effectively fuse into one economic area. The rise of everywhere AI means that the mega-region's pull will extend into the digital world. We're already seeing a two-tier geography. You might physically live in a small town in the Appalachian Gap, but if your digital life is anchored in the Northeast Corridor, you're a resident of that mega-region. This digital takeover allows the areas to harvest the work of the entire continent without needing to pave it over. Perhaps the most shocking shift on the 2050 map will be the Great Northern Pivot. For a century, the story of America was go south and west for the sun. But as the heat in the Sunbelt reaches levels that challenge infrastructure, and as sea levels threaten the Florida and Gulf Coast paths, a massive move back north is beginning. The Great Lakes megaregion is being rebranded as the climate haven of the 21st century. With access to 20% of the world's fresh surface water, cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Buffalo are seeing a massive boom in population. This time, it's built on water security. In 2050, the Great Lakes may once again be the most vital megaregion in the country, the hydro powerhouse of a thirsty nation. As the takeover finishes, the empty spots between the 11 islands will become high-tech service zones. These areas won't be wastelands. Instead, they'll be automated landscapes of self-driving tractors, wind farms, and carbon-trapping forests, the engine room of the megaregions. There will be very few people living there, but it'll be the most watched and productive land on Earth. When you look at the black marble satellite view in 2050, the 11 glowing webs will be brighter and more linked than ever. The old state lines will be invisible because they no longer matter. The real power lies in the regional boards that manage the water, power, and data of the islands. America is no longer a map of 50 states. It's 11 glowing engines of human activity, stretching from sea to shining sea. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack. Every line on the map hides a handshake. From secret land grabs to oil deals whispered over cigars, this is how America built an empire, while insisting it was just networking. America once ended at the Mississippi River. It nervously stared across the water at Spain's property line. The young republic even had to ask permission just to float its boats down to New Orleans. So much for the land of the free. Safely tucked behind the Atlantic, the US could watch Europe's endless drama, popcorn in hand, as Napoleon and Britain tore up the continent. Napoleon, though, needed cash badly. Cannons don't come cheap, and empires are extra. So he looked west. In 1800, he snatched the Louisiana Territory back from Spain, ready to plant the French flag from New Orleans to the Rockies. But fate had other plans. 500,000 enslaved people in Saint-Domingue, today's Haiti, thought, why should Europeans have the monopoly on revolutions? Led by Toussaint Louverture, they fought for freedom and won. Everyone loves an underdog story. France's Caribbean empire eventually went up in smoke. Literally, no sugar, no money, no dreams of a French America. But there was one deal that made everything possible. I'll unpack the events and reasons that made America the empire it is today. So, Napoleon cut his losses. He sold the Louisiana Territory to Thomas Jefferson, 828,000 square miles for $15 million, about $370 million today, a garage sale price for half a continent. The US doubled in size overnight. The Mississippi was now America's main street, no more saying por favor to Spain. Ironically, Jefferson had to use Alexander Hamilton's fancy financial system to make it happen. The same one he'd spent years trashing. The same one Lin-Manuel Miranda rapped about. The Federalists weren't happy. About the deal, not the Broadway show. But after the deal, they never questioned the White House again. Jefferson pulled off the biggest real estate deal in American history and got away with it because no one could really argue with him. It just made too much sense. But not every land grab looked that smart on paper. Enter William Seward. Everyone thought the Secretary of State lost his mind when he bought Alaska. Snow, ice, empty. Basically one big frozen storage unit. Russia was eager to get rid of it. They'd just taken a beating in the Crimean War and needed cash more than coastline. The price? $7.2 million, about $130 million today. Critics called it Seward's folly, a multi-million-dollar ice cube. Russia soon got seller's remorse. Just 30 years after dumping Alaska, prospectors struck gold, transforming the frozen wasteland into the wild north. And uncovering that gold wasn't the only treasure beneath the permafrost. In 1968, drillers hit the jackpot. Black gold, an ocean of it, roughly 3.2 billion barrels in reserve, the fourth largest in the nation. And that's not counting natural gas, second only to Texas. For a place once written off as a frozen mistake, Alaska turned out to be one very profitable icebox. Today, Alaska's oil revenues make that $7.2 million look like a typo. Seward's folly became one of the best bargains in American history, proof that not every bad idea stays bad. Some just take 100 years to brag about. But it's not all about the dollar signs. Russia's decision to bail on Alaska still haunts it. There are 9 military bases staring right across the Bering Strait. Alaska didn't just give the US a cold chunk of land, it gave it leverage, a frozen weapon on the Pacific chessboard. From there, America could flex its muscles halfway around the world while keeping the core homeland wrapped in a cozy blanket of safety. And that wasn't the only bold move. The country that broke free from a king turned around and helped dethrone one in a tropical paradise. Back in 1810, King Kamehameha I had done the impossible. He'd united the islands into a single kingdom. But that came with strings attached. Western backers had bankrolled the dream, and now they wanted payback. By the late 1800s, the Hawaiian monarchy was surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned, and outfinanced. Sharks in the water and sharks in boats. Then, in 1887, a gang of armed Westerners calling themselves the Honolulu Rifles showed up. They came with smiles and rifles and made the king an offer he couldn't refuse. They called it the Bayonet Constitution. Not a nickname, a warning label. Overnight, royal power vanished. It was replaced by sugar barons and businessmen running the islands like a company, just with better weather and surfing. 5 years later, the same crew got the band back together, but they had a rebrand. The Annexation Club. Sounds harmless, like a high school debate team, except their topic was empire. 5 Americans, 1 Brit, 1 German. A tiny cast for a very big heist. When Queen Liliuokalani tried to take back her throne, they moved fast. Now they were the Committee of Safety. Sounds reassuring. Then you realize whose safety they meant. They called in 162 U.S. sailors for protection. On January 17, 1893, it was over before anyone broke a sweat. Swift, bloodless, and efficient. A coup executed with the precision of a boardroom merger. It took until 1898 for the United States to finally admit it had an empire problem, and it liked it. President Grover Cleveland wasn't down with annexing Hawaii. He even scolded the coup like a disappointed dad. I'm not mad. It's just now constitutional. But his successor? He was the cool uncle, the one who shows up late, ignores the rules, and buys the kids fireworks. That same year, the Spanish-American War kicked off. Suddenly, the US wasn't just a country, it was a contender. Spain's empire was scrambling like a YouTuber desperate for likes, and America showed up like Mr. Beast. Bigger budget, louder, and sociopathic tendencies. Speaking of YouTubers, if you're enjoying these map deep dives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's the only thing keeping my internal compass from spinning wildly. Anyway, the US started collecting territories like they were Pokemon cards. Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Guam, gotta catch 'em all. Empire Edition. The Spanish-American War was more important than just the territories it gave to America, though. And out of the chaos rode Theodore Roosevelt, the Rough Rider himself, part soldier, part showman, 100% mustache. 1 war, 1 horse, instant celebrity. Who needs TikTok? His enemies tried to bury him in politics. Governor of New York, then vice president. Perfect way to keep him busy and far from real power until McKinley got shot. Suddenly, the guy they couldn't control was sitting in the Oval Office. Roosevelt looked outward, always did. France had tried to carve a canal through Panama and nearly drowned in the mud. Roosevelt saw that mess and thought, challenge accepted. A shortcut between oceans, a hinge for world trade, a monument to American willpower, one mosquito bite at a time. Back then, ships traveling between the Atlantic and Pacific had to swing all the way around South America, a 14,000-mile trip around Cape Horn. It was full of storms, mutiny, and misery, and expensive. It was Amazon trying to deliver a package in a hurricane. Roosevelt wanted to change that. He wanted to take on nature and give it a KO. At first, it looked possible. In early 1903, he struck a deal with Colombia, which controlled Panama. But then Colombia's Congress got greedy. There weren't enough zeros in the fine print. So they killed the deal, and Roosevelt's canal dream, for now. Roosevelt wasn't the type to take no for an answer. When Colombia killed the canal deal, he didn't feel sorry for himself. He cracked his knuckles. This was the guy who boxed in the White House, wrestled reporters for fun, and thought diplomacy meant speaking softly while having an entire navy. So he took matters into his own hands. He sent U.S. warships to observe Panama's independence movement, which just so happened to succeed the moment those ships showed up. Pure coincidence. By the end of 1903, Roosevelt wasn't talking to Colombia anymore. He was chatting with Philippe Bonneau-Varilla, a French engineer from the failed canal project who somehow was now representing Panama, a country he didn't even live in. What are the chances? They made a deal that would make any real estate agent proud. Panama got $10 million and a yearly allowance. The US got permanent control of a 10-mile wide canal zone. Not bad for a revolution that lasted less time than a modern flight from Miami to Panama City. That 14,000-mile trip, now 5,000 miles. The world got smaller, America got bigger, and geography got punched in the face. Today, the Panama Canal carries around 6% of all maritime trade, and almost half of America's container traffic. It turned the world's map into a shortcut and gave the US a cheat code for strategy. The Navy could now move between oceans in days instead of weeks. Roosevelt called the canal his greatest foreign policy victory, and few stopped to ask what Colombia or Panama thought. But superpowers don't ask permission. They just redrew the map. The US had officially joined the club, and the canal was its membership card. The Canal Zone eventually went back to Panama, but America's influence never really left. The US Navy still hangs around, like that one X that can't let go, but the canal didn't just reshape geography, it reshaped power and gave America a new weapon, the dollar. William Howard Taft took over from Roosevelt in 1909. One mustache for another. Out went gunboat diplomacy, in came dollar diplomacy. Loans and business deals instead of battleships. Less boom, more bank. With Secretary of State Philander C. Knox, a name that sounds both rich and guilty, Taft pushed this money-first strategy across the Caribbean, Latin America, and even China. Roosevelt had tested the idea earlier in the Dominican Republic. He traded loans for control of its customs system, basically repo men with flags. Taft didn't just copy the play, he supersized it then. In Nicaragua, he toppled dictator José Santos Zelaya like he was clearing space on a monopoly board. Congress protested, Taft shrugged, signed an executive order, and democracy on pause. Problem solved. But in China, the plan sputtered. It was too big, too divided, too many empires elbowing for space at the table. The US tried to buy influence, but China wasn't taking offers. Worse, the whole thing soured relations with Japan. Thankfully, nothing bad happened there. Oh wait, Taft fortunately didn't live to see it. He genuinely believed money could buy peace. That financial stability would somehow create political stability. He was the kind of guy who'd rather shake hands than throw hands. His predecessor? Not so much. Roosevelt never met a fight he didn't like. Guns broke down doors, but dollars kept them open. 3 decades later, the same logic moved from battleships to balance sheets, as we will later see. So, back to him. Roosevelt had tangled with Colombia and Panama, sure, but his real brawl came stateside, against a man who made capitalism look like a contact sport, John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller was rich, stupid rich, all from America's industrial boom. But it wasn't just oil that powered his empire. It was paperwork, favors, smoke-filled rooms. His business model wasn't a better product at a better price, it was massacre. Late in 1871, the South Improvement Company was born. Forgettable name, terrible purpose. A secret pact between Big Oil and Big Rail. Overnight, Rockefeller went full Pac-Man. He bought up one refinery after another. By 1900, he didn't just run the oil industry, he was the oil industry. So, in 1906, Roosevelt's Justice Department sued Standard Oil. They called it an illegal monopoly. The trial dragged on for years because Rockefeller kept ducking subpoenas like he was allergic to them. But when the verdict came down, Standard Oil didn't die. It just respawned. Smaller, faster, and richer than before. Justice served, allegedly. That's because Rockefeller got richer. The broken company split into pieces with familiar names: Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and JD had stock in all of them. By the time cars took over America, Rockefeller wasn't shattered. He was sitting in a leather chair watching his broken empire fill every gas tank in America, twirling his mustache like a cartoon villain. During World War I, Washington had a revelation. Wars run on oil. Lawmakers started sweating over how long America's supply would last. The tanks were full, sure, but the future? That was running on fumes. Luckily, the US had leverage. It had helped win the war, and Britain and France owed it big, so America called in the tab. Europe wanted to keep the world's oil fields locked up like a private club. The US kicked the door open and called it an open-door policy. Translation: democracy means drilling where we want. It started in Iraq. American companies squeezed in alongside British and French partners. Then, in 1928, Standard Oil of California struck black gold in Bahrain. 5 years later, Saudi Arabia. Texaco joined in too. Soon, American and British firms were carving up Latin America like a business buffet. By World War II, the US wasn't just swimming in oil. It was Scrooge McDuck diving in it. Germany invaded Russia to get some. Japan attacked America after the US cut off 90% of its supply. Rockefeller's monopoly playbook had gone global. It was steering US foreign policy. Only this time, the prize wasn't just oil. It was the world itself. You've heard the term Banana Republic before. Not the clothing store, the real thing. It all started with an actual banana company. Seriously, the United Fruit Company didn't just sell fruit. It built an empire out of it. Railroads, ports, telegraph lines, half of Central America became its supply chain. It wasn't farming anymore, it was running countries. The plantations had flags. It doesn't get more official than that. And its vines reached all the way to Washington. John Foster Dulles, later Secretary of State, used to be the company's lawyer. His brother Allen Dulles, future CIA director, sat on its board. Two brothers, two branches of government. The appointments came at a convenient time. Guatemala elected a new president in 1951, Jacobo Arbenz, polite, progressive, and popular. The next year, he signed an act redistributing idle land, 224 acres per family. The poor loved it. United Fruit did not. The company owned so much unused land it could have built its own zip code. Suddenly, Arbenz wasn't just a reformer. He was a commie, the Moscow in the jungle kind. Washington panicked, or pretended to. When Guatemala's land reform threatened United Fruit's empire, the company didn't panic. It made a phone call, straight to Washington. In 1954, US-backed forces rolled in and President Arbenz rolled out. United Fruit kept the land. Guatemala got a civil war that lasted decades. The coup came wrapped in the usual gift paper, anti-communism. But Arbenz's real crime? Trying to modernize without a US-approved hall pass. United Fruit operated like something out of a cyberpunk fever dream. Corporate troops in the jungle, executives in Washington, propaganda spinning faster than a ceiling fan in July. Progress, development. It was an empire with better branding. A private company running foreign policy from a corner office. No uniforms, no flags, just letterhead. And the brand? Still around. It just went through a few costume changes. United Fruit became United Brands in the 70s. Then Chiquita in the 80s. That friendly blue and yellow sticker on your banana? That's history smiling at you. You're welcome for the coup. The US doesn't always need coups, though. Sometimes it just sends an invoice. Despite being nearly $38 trillion in debt and raising its borrowing limit like I raise my credit card limit, America has never gone bankrupt. It wrote the rules of the global economy, then signed its own name at the top. How? Simple. Bretton Woods, a mountain resort in New Hampshire. It made the dollar the world's measuring stick. It's where, in 1944, the future of money got decided over coffee and exhaustion. The goal? Keep the next Great Depression from happening. The problem? Nobody agreed on how. Two men squared off. On one side, John Maynard Keynes, Britain's economic rock star. Is that really a thing? Keynes was still clinging to the idea that the empire had some say left. On the other, the Americans, who'd already brought the world to heel through production lines and war bonds. Keynes pitched something bold, a global central bank called the Clearing Union with its own neutral currency, the banker. Catchy. Each nation could borrow within limits. Surpluses would be recycled. Balance was the dream, stability the goal. Think of it as socialism for trade, polite, mathematical, and British. America's plan was simpler, more restrained, at least on paper. A system backed by gold and national currencies. A polite way of saying, you trust us, and we'll make sure you never have to read the fine print. But Bretton Woods wasn't a negotiation, it was theater. The US didn't walk in to debate the British Empire, it walked in to repossess it. America was building twice as many planes and 7 times as many ships as Britain, and the British were paying for it all on credit. American credit. Their debt was twice the size of their entire economy, owed to the same people smiling across the table. Britain was maxing out its credit card at America's store. And to really drive it home, US troops were now parked in Britain's colonies. For security, obviously. The Empire still flew the Union Jack, but Washington had the keys. So America got the gold, literally. Keynes won a few polite rounds at Bretton Woods, but US Treasury official Harry Dexter White walked away with the trophy. In 1945, his version became a reality, the International Monetary Fund. Member currencies would hover within 1% of the US dollar, and the dollar itself was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. Not the pound, not Keynes's dreamy banker, the dollar, the new measuring stick for the planet. That gave Washington something better than an empire: leverage. With the dollar as the world's benchmark, America could rebuild Europe, bankroll allies, and buy influence wholesale. It was dollar diplomacy 2.0. Same swagger, fewer gunboats. But then in 1971, Nixon snapped the golden ruler in half. He ended dollar convertibility. The whole system should have crashed. It didn't. Nixon had a backup plan, one that ran on oil and pure American confidence. The US had already practiced this kind of control the old-fashioned way. In 1953, the CIA and Britain's MI6 helped overthrow Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh after he nationalized Western oil. The Shah came back. US access to oil stayed safe. Fast forward to 1971, and that logic went global. Gold was out, oil was in. The dollar would now be backed by barrels instead of bullion. The petrodollar, a much better name than the banker. The system was so powerful it turned energy itself into American currency, and the world never stopped paying the bill. The petrodollar rose without much resistance. Hard to resist when you're broke. By the 1970s, Europe was still cleaning up the mess it made 30 years earlier. To rebuild allies and box in communism, Washington launched the Marshall Plan, $13.3 billion, about $150 billion today, to jumpstart Europe's recovery, not charity. A down payment. 16 nations got aid carefully designed to make them loyal customers. Freedom came with store credit. Then came NATO, tying Western Europe's security to the US like a shared bank account. Article 5 promised defense. Article 2 whispered economic coordination. Drafted by Canada, sure, but written in fluent American. Between the lines, it said, keep your economies compatible with ours. Europe's financial stability was now connected directly to America's economy. And Washington, it owned the Wi-Fi password. NATO wasn't just a shield, it was a shopping mall. After World War II flattened Europe's factories, America showed up with shelves full of military hardware. The Walmart of weapons. Buy now, rebuild later. And the sale never really ended. Between 2022 and 2023, 63% of EU defense contracts went to American firms. Nearly 2/3 of Europe's security spending flies right back across the Atlantic, first class. And the big plan to diversify? Lower that number to 50%, half off. Like, that's independence. NATO isn't just an alliance, it's a conveyor belt. Euros go in, dollars come out. Missiles in between, a perfectly balanced system, if you happen to live in Washington. The United States keeps at least 128 military bases across 49 countries. Sounds like an empire. It isn't. Well, not officially. These aren't conquests, they're partnerships. Host nations invite the troops, some even foot the bill. Japan alone spends about $8.6 billion every 5 years, roughly 75% of the cost, to host more US soldiers than anywhere else on Earth. Rent due, flags included. But bases get awkward. Tanks aren't subtle. So Washington learned to project power a different way. Less boots, more billboards, culture. Hollywood became America's soft power engine. Edison built the camera. California built the empire. Filmmakers ran from the East Coast thanks to Edison's patent fees. Then came the biggest plot twist in movie history. Hitler purged Jewish artists from Germany's thriving film industry, one of the best in the world. They fled to America. The Nazis lost their filmmakers, and eventually the war. From there, Hollywood didn't just make movies. It made legends. All 50 of the highest-grossing films ever made come from US studios. In 2024, American productions still pulled 69.5% of the world's box office, down from 85.6% in 2014, but still enough to make freedom look like a franchise. Even the tech that's disrupting it, streaming, is American. The medium changed, the message didn't. It still flies the stars and stripes, now buffering in 4K. Netflix now has over 301 million subscribers worldwide. Sure, there's plenty of Japanese and South Korean content, but don't kid yourself. It's still an American export, just with subtitles. No theaters, no living rooms, just a phone. Cultural imperialism with autoplay. And those phones? Mostly American under the skin. About 1.4 billion people use iPhones. That's 1 in 5 people living in Apple's ecosystem. The other 3.6 billion use Android, software owned by Google, headquartered in California. Even Samsung phones run American code. The empire runs on updates, and occasionally overheats. Google itself, a global oracle, it controls 90% of the world's search traffic. The word Google turned into a verb. Apparently, look it up took too long. From Tokyo to Paris to Sao Paulo, the planet now looks things up in English. Every search, every curiosity, every late-night panic, all going through the same servers in Silicon Valley. Sure, China collects more data, but it does it like a bouncer, loud, slightly aggressive, and checking IDs. The US does it like a butler, polite, silent, and already holding your phone on a silver tray. It's an empire by convenience. No guns, no speeches, just a pop-up that says accept all cookies, and somehow we always do. In the US, it's the private companies doing the spying. Sorry, data collection. That gives Washington plausible deniability. We're not watching you. Our partners are. Firms like Google build cloud systems for the Pentagon and train AI for military use. Silicon Valley is subcontracting for the empire. The line between government and business isn't blurred. It's been outsourced. It started in the Cold War. Science and paranoia went on a double date. The 1950s and 60s turned into a high-tech playoff. Capitalism versus communism, but with rockets instead of referees. The Soviets scored first in 1957 with Sputnik, a shiny metal ball that made America freak out so hard it invented NASA out of thin air. And NASA called IBM with a request. A computer that fits in a spaceship. IBM said impossible. NASA gave them $26 million, and suddenly, impossible was possible. They got a 60-pound machine for the Gemini rockets. It worked. Gemini led to Apollo. Apollo led to the moon. One small step for man, one giant contract for IBM. But the real moonshot came after. The mini-computers built for space became the seeds of American tech dominance. Apple, Microsoft, Intel, all descended from that government-funded race to out-nerd the Soviets. The USSR got propaganda posters. America got product launches. The Cold War didn't just end with victory parades, it ended with operating systems. The hammer and sickle faded, and the Apple logo booted up. America never had to call itself an empire. The receipts told the story. From Louisiana to Silicon Valley, the conquest came with contracts. And everyone signed. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack. Think you know America? Think again. From towns you've never heard of to distances you'll never guess. These are the US geography slip-ups Europeans always make. And, well, plenty of Americans, too. And if you're into these weekly map dives, hit subscribe. My group chat has already muted me for ranking European peninsulas. Number 50. America is big. It's huge. It's easy to look at a map and think the US and the European Union are around the same size, but you'd be wrong. The United States is roughly 3.8 million square miles, 9.8 million square kilometers, nearly twice the size of the EU's 1.6 million, 4.2 million square kilometers. Texas alone can swallow any EU country whole and still have room to spare. And if you want that dream American road trip, you better fill up on gas. New York City to San Francisco is over 2,900 miles, almost 4,700 kilometers. That's like driving from Vienna to Lisbon and back again. That sheer size makes America a land of extremes: scorching deserts, snow-capped mountains, vast plains, and packed cities, all crammed into one country. And speaking of size, number 49, ask most people the biggest US state and they'll say Texas because, well, everything's supposed to be bigger in the Lone Star State. Wrong. Texas is big, but Alaska. It's twice the size and larger than France, Spain, and Germany combined. Texas clocks in at about 270,000 square miles, almost 700,000 square kilometers, but Alaska absolutely dwarfs it, packing in over 656,000 square miles, 1.7 million square kilometers. But despite all that space, Alaska is practically empty. Just over 700,000 people live there, fewer than in Brussels. So it's basically a country-sized wilderness with the population of a mid-tier European city. Number 48, when Europeans think about the Mississippi River, two things come to mind: how to spell it and its length. It often gets compared to the Danube, like they're in the same league. The Mississippi runs approximately 2,400 miles, 3,800 kilometers, making it nearly 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers longer than the Danube, which runs about 1,800 miles, 2,900 kilometers from Germany to the Black Sea. The Mississippi drains about 40% of the continental US. That's like rolling most of Europe's rivers into one. It's a river that shapes America's heartland, carrying barges loaded with grain, feeding farms with irrigation, and occasionally wiping out towns with floods. Yet, for many Europeans, it still gets brushed off as just America's version of the Danube. Number 47. European capitals or regional centers tend to be the largest and most prominent cities in the country. The US does things its own way. California's capital? Sacramento. Not LA, because size and movie stars don't win you the crown. North Carolina's capital is Raleigh, even though Charlotte calls the shots economically and culturally. And Illinois, its capital is Little Springfield. No, not the Simpsons one, while Chicago sits on the sidelines. In Europe, capitals usually hog the spotlight. Politics, money, and culture all crammed into one city. In the US, capitals were often chosen for history or compromise, not size. It's part of that federal habit of spreading power around instead of letting one city take all the glory. Number 46. Unlike Europe, where centuries-old towns are still buzzing with life, the US is scattered with ghost towns, literally thousands of them. These were boom towns that shot up almost overnight during mining rushes or railroad pushes. As the gold, silver, or jobs dried up, people bailed. Think of Europe's old market towns. If half of them had been abandoned and left to rot the moment the fairs, feasts, and public executions stopped. Take Bodie, California. In the 1880s, it had saloons on every corner and a reputation for wild shootouts. But once the mines went silent, the town emptied so fast meals were left on tables, completely untouched. Kinda like my mom's Thanksgiving dinners. Number 45. Russia might span 11 time zones, but the US holds its own. Counting territories, America officially stretches across 6 different time zones. The mainland alone runs on 4, Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific, and that's before you add Alaska and Hawaii Aleutian, which have their own zones. Toss in places like Puerto Rico and Guam, and the list gets even longer. For Europeans used to zipping across a continent mostly in 1 or 2 time zones, it's a shock to the system. In the US, flying coast to coast can mean losing 3 or 4 hours on the clock. It's like taking off in London and landing in Moscow, without ever leaving one country. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear about the Appalachians, but we'll get there soon. Number 44. Europeans often picture the US as non-stop city life. New York, LA, and skyscrapers on every corner, but out west in states like Nevada, Montana, and Wyoming, more like empty stretches of land and a lot of cows. Nevada, for instance, is about 5 times bigger than Belgium, but with a population of around 3 million. That's the same as the capital of Portugal, Lisbon. Out west, the land just stretches forever. Deserts, jagged mountains, and national parks where you can drive for hours without spotting a single house. It's less Europe, more Siberia. In Europe, every patch of land gets carved up by towns and farms. In the American West, it's just big skies, open roads, and a whole lot of nothing. Something most Europeans can't quite wrap their heads around. Number 43. California is a powerhouse. Nearly 40 million people, about the same as Poland, call it home. Its $4.1 trillion GDP would make it the world's fourth largest economy, slotting in just behind Germany and ahead of Japan. And in size, California's 164,000 square miles, 425,000 square kilometers, put it on par with Sweden. In one state, you've got snow-capped Sierra Nevada peaks, scorching deserts, fertile valleys, and megacities. Europeans sometimes picture the US as all the same, but California feels like its own continent. Mediterranean coastlines, alpine mountains, and desert frontiers mashed together. All it's missing is a medieval castle or two. Number 42. Let's talk measurements, because this is where Europeans really get whiplash. In the US, it's miles instead of kilometers, feet and inches instead of meters, gallons at the gas pump, and Fahrenheit on the weather report. So when Europeans see 30 degrees Celsius, they think scorching hot. Americans call the same thing 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which to some may sound like, maybe bring a sweater. It's the kind of mismatch that makes road trips, forecasts, and even ordering a soda feel like a puzzle. Europe sticks to one clean system. America, it's still clinging to its own. Part tradition, part stubbornness, and maybe just a little bit of, we like being difficult. Number 41. Canada gets all the fame as the land of lakes, but the US is stacked with them too, over 102,000 in total. Minnesota alone brags about being the land of 10,000 lakes, and some of those aren't just backyard ponds, they're massive freshwater seas. The Great Lakes, like Michigan and Superior, are so big they make whole European countries look like puddles. Lake Superior is bigger than Belgium or the Netherlands. This network of lakes plays a crucial role in America's ecology, economy, and recreation. Europeans often don't realize how much water defines US life until they realize some Americans own more boats than cars. So yeah, America is twice the size of Europe. Alaska makes Texas look like a starter pack, and the Mississippi is so massive it makes the Danube look like a hotel fountain. And we're just getting started. Number 40. Unlike European cities like Paris or Berlin, which sit inside larger regions, Washington, D.C. was built as its own federal district. That's so no single state could bully the national government. It's tiny, just 68 square miles, 177 square kilometers, way smaller than sprawling capitals like London or Rome. But within that small patch, you've got the White House, the Capitol, and the Supreme Court, the entire nerve center of American politics. Its very existence shows how differently the US does things compared to Europe, where capitals usually sprouted out of old kingdoms and historic regions. Number 39. In Europe, mountains aren't just for skiing or snapping selfies, they often double as borders between countries. In the US, the Rockies don't divide, they dominate. This massive range runs thousands of kilometers from New Mexico up through Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, and Montana. The Rockies form the Continental Divide, where rivers split east toward the Atlantic and Gulf of America, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, or west toward the Pacific. They impact weather, wildlife migrations, and even decide where people can live. In short, they don't just sit on the map, they run the show. Number 38. Europeans, and even some Americans, often assume New York City is the capital of New York State. Nope, that honor goes to Albany. With around 100,000 people, it's tiny compared to NYC's 8.5 million. Albany proves that size doesn't matter. It's where the legislature meets and the governor hangs his hat. In that way, it's a bit like Luxembourg City or Ljubljana in Europe. Small capitals flexing on everyone else. It's another reminder that US states often keep their politics and their money in different places. Number 37. Central Europe is known for its green valleys tucked between towering mountain ranges, the Rhine Gorge, the Danube Valley, usually 1,000 to 3,300 feet, 300 to 1,000 meters deep. Impressive, sure, but the Grand Canyon? Whole different league. At its deepest, it plunges more than 5,900 feet, 1,800 meters, and runs almost 280 miles, 450 kilometers long. Carved by the Colorado River over millions of years, the Grand Canyon drops into a raw, dry, almost alien landscape. Europe's valleys feel cozy by comparison. The Grand Canyon feels like the earth just cracked open. You don't really get it until you're standing on the rim, with your knees wobbling. Number 36. Miami is closer to Havana than it is to New York. It's just 230 miles, 370 kilometers across the water to Cuba, but nearly 1,200 miles, 1,900 kilometers up the coast to New York. That closeness shapes Miami's food, culture, and vibe. More tropical and Latin America than anything you'll find up north. For Europeans used to short hops between countries, it's a surprise to learn Miami's real neighbor isn't New York, it's Havana. New York might send tourists. Cuba sends the flavor. Number 35. Europe barely has deserts. The only true one is Spain's Little Tabernas. The American Southwest, a whole different story. The Mojave Desert alone sprawls across nearly 48,000 square miles, 124,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than Greece or Bulgaria, and it's just one desert. Add the Sonoran and the Great Basin, and you've got hundreds of thousands more. But they're not empty voids. They're alive with unique plants and animals, dotted with towns, and home to icons like Joshua Tree and Death Valley. Many Europeans don't realize how deserts play an important role in the US, far from being empty wastelands. They're a defining part of the country's geography and character. Plus, they're some of the only places where running into a cactus is a genuine travel hazard. Number 34. Hawaii is pretty lonely. Sitting nearly 2,400 miles, 3,800 kilometers southwest of California, it's planted in the middle of the Pacific, about 2/3 of the way to Japan. This is farther than the distance from Glasgow, Scotland to Moscow. And its isolation is basically its whole personality. And that's not a bad thing. It shaped everything from culture to climate to wildlife, mixing Polynesian roots with US influence. Yet plenty of Europeans think Hawaii is just off California's coast, right up until they're 5.5 hours into a flight stuck next to a screaming baby. So much for that relaxing getaway. Number 33. The Appalachian Mountains are basically the pensioners of America's mountain ranges. At over 480 million years old, they make Europe's Alps, just 65 million years old, look like toddlers. Once taller than today's Rockies, the Appalachians have been worn down over ages of erosion into the rolling hills and modest peaks we see now. Unlike the still-growing Alps or Rockies, these mountains are long past their growth spurt. To Europeans, they might look small, but they're among the oldest landscapes on Earth. Number 32. Europe has its headliner islands, like Sicily, Corsica, or the Greek Isles. The US might not have the same Mediterranean glamour, but it's secretly an island hoarder, with thousands scattered across lakes, rivers, and oceans. Some, like the Great Lakes archipelagos, are so big they could pass for small European countries. Others, like Washington's San Juans, feel more like cozy villages dropped into the sea. Along the Atlantic and Gulf coasts, barrier islands act like speed bumps for hurricanes, protecting the mainland while hosting beach towns that look one storm away from vanishing. Most of these islands barely show up on standard maps, but each comes with its own quirks, like tiny outposts where the ferry doubles as the school bus. They're hidden pieces of America's geography most Europeans never hear about. Number 31. In Europe, geography usually means countries with borders, flags, and centuries of history. In the US, it's a bit fuzzier. Regions have names like the Midwest, the South, New England, or the Pacific Northwest. They're not political lines, just cultural shorthand. So Illinois counts as Midwest, while Texas flies the flag of the South. And those two couldn't be more different in climate, culture, or economy. It's America's way of making sense of a huge, mixed-up landscape. Think of it like Europe ditching borders and just calling France the wine belt or Scotland the cold, rainy bit. So America's the place where Albany beats New York to be capital, the Grand Canyon makes Europe's valleys look like ditches, and Hawaii turns out to be halfway to Tokyo instead of next to California. Of course it is. Remember, Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's finish this ride together. Number 30. Some Europeans picture the US and Russia as worlds apart, but they're basically neighbors. In the Bering Strait, the Diomede Islands sit just 2.4 miles, 3.8 kilometers apart. Little Diomede for the US, Big Diomede for Russia. You can literally stand on one and wave at the other, though you'd be waving across the international dateline, so technically you're greeting someone tomorrow. In winter, the water freezes enough that you could, in theory, walk between the two, though it's probably not a great idea unless you like international incidents. Number 29. Death Valley in California doesn't just get hot, it also goes low. At 282 feet 86 meters below sea level, it's the lowest point in North America. Europe's lowest spot, the Caspian Depression in Russia, bottoms out at 92 feet 28 meters below sea level. Death Valley is a sun-baked furnace, famous for record-breaking heat and landscapes that look more Mars than Earth. It's one of those places where the valleys beat the mountains for drama, and where your car's AC better not quit on you. Number 28. Europe is dotted with crystal-clear freshwater lakes, some fed by glaciers. Utah's Great Salt Lake? Total opposite. Its salinity can hit 10 times that of the ocean. Basically the Dead Sea draped in stars and stripes. The lake grows and shrinks with the seasons, sometimes ballooning to almost 1,700 square miles, 4,400 square kilometers, bigger than Berlin. It's teeming with brine shrimp, packed with migratory birds, and even turning pink when microbes bloom. And don't worry if you can't swim. You'll float, whether you like it or not. Number 27. Wyoming, the least populated US state. It's got less than 600,000 residents, fewer than Luxembourg, but it's bigger than the entire United Kingdom. That means wide open spaces where the population density is so low, you're more likely to bump into a moose than a neighbor. And it's not just Wyoming. Vermont and even Alaska have populations on par with tiny European states. For Europeans used to tightly packed towns and cities, it's jarring. Here you can drive for hours without seeing another human being. In America's emptiest corners, rush hour is just a tumbleweed rolling across the road. Number 26. If you're a fan of bling, grab a shovel and head to Arkansas. Crater of Diamonds State Park is one of the only diamond-producing sites on Earth open to the public. Visitors hunt for gems like amethyst, jasper, and diamonds, and whatever you find, you keep. That's wildly different from the rest of the world, where diamond mining is industrial, fenced off, and locked down. Here specifically, it's a tourist attraction. 91 acres, 37 hectares of dirt, where anyone can strike it lucky. For Europeans used to diamonds sitting behind glass cases in Brussels or Antwerp, the idea of kids pulling them out of the mud feels very American. It's a fun family day out, with the possibility of an early retirement. Number 25. Alaska is the most western state in the contiguous USA, and it's the most eastern. The Aleutian Islands stretch so far west they actually cross the 180th meridian, meaning a sliver of the US technically sits in the eastern hemisphere. It's one of the only places on Earth where going east from America literally takes you into the east. That's not Alaska's only geography trick. Parts of the state are closer to Russia than to its own capital, Juneau. In other words, Alaskans could get to Siberia quicker than they could drive to their governor's office. You know, if there wasn't an ocean in the way. Number 24. Driving across Texas isn't a road trip, it's an odyssey. From El Paso in the west to Texarkana in the east is about 820 miles, 1,300 kilometers. That's nearly the same as Paris to Warsaw, a trip that takes you through multiple countries in Europe. In Texas, you're still in the same state, probably still arguing about what to order at the next barbecue stop. It's a reminder of just how massive some US states are, bigger than whole clusters of European nations combined. Number 23. Lake Superior lives up to its name. Covering almost 32,000 square miles, almost 83,000 square kilometers, it's the largest freshwater lake on Earth by surface area. That makes it bigger than Austria or the Czech Republic. Superior kicks up storms, sudden weather shifts, and waves over 30 feet 9 meters high, conditions Europeans don't usually associate with a lake. Straddling the US and Canada, it holds about 10% of the world's unfrozen surface freshwater, a vital resource that supports drinking water, commercial fishing, recreation, and biodiversity. It's more like a sea than a lake. Number 22. Europe packs dozens of countries, languages, and cultures across an entire continent. The US does the same, but spread across one country. A trip from New York to San Francisco takes you through all kinds of climates. Humid subtropical in the southeast, blizzards in the Midwest, and Mediterranean sunshine on California's coast. And it's not just weather. Accents, food, traditions, even politics shift dramatically, just about as much as crossing European borders. The South gave the world jazz and soul, the West cranks out billion-dollar tech startups, and in between, you'll find everything from deep dish pizza to cowboy rodeos. It's a reminder that America isn't one culture. It's a patchwork quilt stitched together, sometimes neatly, sometimes not. Number 21. Think of the Everglades, and you might think of gators. But this is no ordinary swamp. It's a subtropical wetland sprawling across 3,000 square miles, 7,777 square kilometers. Imagine slow-moving rivers of grass, mangroves twisting through the water, and wildlife ranging from alligators to manatees to flocks of exotic birds. European wetlands, by comparison, tend to be smaller, cooler, and tamer. The Everglades is warm, wild, and swampy. This ecosystem filters water, helps control floods, and shelters endangered species. For many Europeans, its sheer size and biodiversity come as a shock. After all, most hikes don't involve checking if you're on the menu for an alligator. Only in America can you wave at Russia across tomorrow, mine diamonds like it's a school field trip, and still be stuck in Texas arguing over barbecue. And we've still got more facts to come. Number 20. Europe has its celebrity volcanoes, Etna, Vesuvius, but Alaska has the numbers. With over 130 active ones, most cluster along the Aleutian Islands and the Alaska Peninsula, part of the infamous Pacific Ring of Fire. Eruptions like Mount Redoubt have blasted ash clouds thousands of kilometers and even grounded planes. And Mount St. Helens, just down in Washington, blew so hard in 1980 it took the top off the mountain. In Europe, volcanoes do make good tourist stops. In Alaska, they make your flight schedule a gamble. Number 19. From the towering hoodoos of Bryce Canyon in Utah to the delicate arches of Arches National Park, America is packed with rock formations you won't find anywhere in Europe. Millions of years of erosion, sediment, and volcanic tantrums sculpted landscapes. The Badlands in South Dakota are a highlight, jagged buttes and spires exposing layer after layer of fossilized history. Compared to Europe's more stable, predictable landforms, these places feel wild, colorful, and downright alien, leaving many Europeans wondering if they accidentally booked a trip to Mars. Number 18. Founded by the Spanish in 1565, St. Augustine is the oldest continuously inhabited European settlement on the US mainland. Sure, that's nothing next to Europe's capitals with Roman ruins in their basements, but it still beats the United States itself by over 200 years. Unlike Europe's cities, which grew slowly, many American cities popped up fast around colonial outposts like St. Augustine. Head west and you'll find Santa Fe, founded in 1610. It's the oldest state capital in the country. Its history blends Spanish colonial roots with Native American traditions. While Europe does ancient, America does colonial startup. Number 17. Stretching roughly 5,500 miles, 8,900 kilometers, the US-Canada border dwarfs any European counterpart. For comparison, the border between France and Spain spans just 387 miles, 620 kilometers. The massive border cuts across forests, lakes, prairies, and even Inuit Arctic lands, and yet it's mostly unfortified. It's the longest peaceful border on Earth. People literally commute between countries on a daily basis. It's so chill, you could cross from one side to the other while holding your coffee. Number 16. Think America is all wide open spaces? Not in New Jersey. With around 1,300 people per square mile, 502 per square kilometer, it's denser than Denmark or Hungary. Nearly 9.5 million people are crammed into this small state, which feels less like land of the free and more like land of the claustrophobic. In short, New Jersey isn't farmland America. It's rush hour Europe, but with better bagels. Number 15. The US is laced with continental divides, natural lines that decide which ocean a river ends up in. The most famous is the Great Divide, slicing from New Mexico through the Rockies into Canada, sending some rivers west to the Pacific and others east to the Atlantic. But there are others. Northern Alaska drains into the Arctic, while Utah's Great Basin rivers don't make it anywhere. They just fizzle out into salty lakes or vanish underground. Europe's system, way simpler. Most rivers head for the Atlantic, the North Sea, or the Mediterranean. America's rivers wander like lost tourists. Europe's flow like they actually read the map. Number 14. We've talked a lot about the US's size, but it's seriously huge. Take the Great Plains, an uninterrupted grassland covering about 1.1 million square miles, 2.82 million square kilometers. That's bigger than most European countries combined. Stretching from Canada down into Texas, it's the kind of endless flat horizon many Europeans have never seen. The plains shaped American agriculture and history, but their sheer scale can feel surreal. For visitors used to Europe's rolling landscapes, it's less pleasant countryside drive and more "are we there yet?" on repeat. Number 13. The US officially recognizes 574 Native American tribes. Each has its own languages, cultures, and traditions spread across the country. The Navajo Nation alone is about the size of West Virginia, while smaller tribes span the Northeast and Alaska. These nations hold sovereignty rights, self-governance, control over their lands, something almost unheard of in Europe, where only a handful of minorities have official status. But that recognition came after centuries of forced removals, broken treaties, and survival against the odds. Yet, many Europeans still overlook this reality, picturing America as highways, cities, and landscapes, while forgetting the hundreds of nations within the nation. Number 12. Europe zips between cities on high-speed rail. The US, it flies. With huge distances and limited passenger rail, planes are the only practical way to cover ground fast. Millions of Americans board domestic flights daily, bouncing between hubs like Chicago, Atlanta, New York, and LA. Geography plays a big role. Major cities are separated by hundreds or even thousands of miles, and the train system just can't compete. Europe's dense rail web keeps air travel secondary, but in the US, Amtrak and regional lines are slow, limited, and often feel like afterthoughts. So while Europeans might hop a train for convenience, Americans head for the airport. Flying is woven into US travel culture, part necessity, part habit. Just make sure you get used to hearing that your flight is delayed. Number 11. One of America's strangest natural wonders hides in Death Valley, California. Here, massive rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, mysteriously moonwalk across the flat surface of Racetrack Playa. For decades, nobody knew how. No people, no animals, no tricks, just rocks on the move. But scientists recently cracked the mystery. Under rare, cold conditions, thin sheets of ice form, and with a good push from the wind, the stones glide slowly across the playa. We're down to the top 10, and we've already toured states packed tighter than Europe, rivers that can't pick an ocean, and plains that stretch like an endless screensaver. Ready for some more? Number 10. The Four Corners is the only place in the US where 4 states, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, hang out together. There's even a marker where visitors can sprawl out, a hand or foot in each state at once. It's one of those rare occasions where borders were drawn as straight lines of latitude and longitude instead of following rivers or mountains. Europe's borders are different. They're shaped by history, wars, and natural features. Number 9. Maine is the oddball of US geography. While most states rub shoulders with half a dozen neighbors, Maine only has one state friend, New Hampshire. The rest is ocean on one side and Canada on the other. That setup gives Maine a split personality. To the southeast, its Atlantic coastline is all fishing villages, lighthouses, and postcard harbors. To the north and west, it shares long borders with Quebec and New Brunswick, tying it closely to Canada. It's the only US state where you can eat world-class lobster rolls by the sea one day and drive a few hours inland to find road signs switching to French. Number 8. Kentucky's Mammoth Cave lives up to its name. It's the longest cave system on Earth, with more than 426 miles, 685 kilometers of mapped passageways, and explorers are still adding new sections. No European cave system comes close. Inside is an underground labyrinth of twisting tunnels, vast chambers and rivers packed with stalactites, stalagmites, and even fossils of ancient creatures. It's even a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting countless visitors every year. The rumors of mole people are unconfirmed, though. Number 7. In Florida's Everglades and southern wetlands, rotting plants have an important job. They release natural oils that spread across the water's surface. When sunlight hits, those oils create shimmering, rainbow-like reflections, turning swamp water into liquid tie-dye. For first-time visitors, the effect looks like pollution, but it's the opposite. Unlike the oily slicks Europeans might expect from an American factory spill, these rainbow pools are signs of a thriving ecosystem. Number 6. New Orleans is one of America's oldest and most recognizable cities. Shaped by French and Spanish colonial rule, it joined the U.S. in 1803, and that influence still lingers. Wrought iron balconies, colorful Creole townhouses, and the winding streets of the French Quarter give it a look unlike anywhere else in the country. Cajun and Creole dialects mix French, African, and American influences into something you won't hear anywhere else. And the food! Gumbo, jambalaya, beignets, history lessons you can eat. Then there's the music. Jazz was born here, blues and brass bands thrive here, and the city's soundtrack spills straight into the streets. Europe built castles. New Orleans, they built good times. Number 5. Michigan is a state split in two. The upper and lower peninsulas are separated by the Straits of Mackinac. Few U.S. states have this kind of double life. The two halves are stitched together by the Mackinac Bridge, a suspension giant stretching nearly 5 miles 8 kilometers and ranking among the longest in the world. Michigan also sits at the heart of the Great Lakes. Lake Michigan is the only one entirely inside the U.S., while Superior, Huron, and Erie all spill over into Canada. Michigan is proof that even states can have identity crises. Number 4. Europe sometimes relies on history when naming its towns and cities. American towns, they just lean into the weird. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico got its name in 1950 after a radio show dared a town to adopt the title. Y, Arizona was named for a Y-shaped highway intersection. And that's just scratching the surface. There's also places like Intercourse, Pennsylvania, and Accident, Maryland. These names come from puns, local jokes, or marketing gimmicks, and a wicked sense of humor. Europeans, used to towns named after saints, monarchs, or thousand-year-old landmarks, sometimes look at a US map and wonder if half the country was named by stand-up comedians. The UK might not be too surprised, though. Number 3. Every U.S. state is divided into counties, except Louisiana. Here, they're called parishes. The name dates back to French and Spanish colonial days when the Catholic Church drew the lines. And when Louisiana joined the U.S. in 1812, it just shrugged, said meh, and kept them. That old quirk still shapes Louisiana's law, politics, and culture today. In Europe, a parish usually means Sunday service. In Louisiana, it also means jury duty and tax bills. Number 2. In Pennsylvania's Gravity Hill, cars in neutral look like they're rolling uphill. Visitors swear it's magic, or maybe ghosts giving a push. In reality, it's an optical illusion. The horizon, trees, and slope of the road trick your eyes into flipping downhill into uphill. Science explains it, but it still feels eerie. That's why local legends talk about haunted children, restless spirits, or supernatural forces at work. These gravity hills pop up across the US, turning into quirky roadside attractions where road trippers stop to test their cars. They exist in Europe too, but they rarely make it onto tourist maps. In America, they get their own parking lot and a gift shop. And finally, number 1. San Francisco's geography stirs up non-stop weather drama. Cold, wet air off the Pacific gets funneled into the bay, draping the city in fog that clings to bridges and hills almost year-round. Locals even named it Carl, and naturally, it has its own social media. Europe has misty mornings. San Francisco? Its fog is an influencer. Can't say that about many places. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack. Take out a map and look at a random place. How did it get its name and shape? And is it really where you think it is? There's a weird story behind it more often than you think. Here are 50 strange geography facts you might find hard to believe. Starting with number 50, Greenland doesn't live up to its name. The name Greenland conjures up images of lush green pastures, but it's actually 80% ice. The contradiction comes from a convict's hype campaign. In 982, Eric the Red was exiled from Iceland after being convicted of murdering 2 of his neighbors. So he sailed to the southwest coast of a new island, which is its most hospitable part. Eric called the place Greenland in a bid to attract more settlers, and it worked. In fairness, it was warmer back then than it is now, and the name for the place among the indigenous people is Kalaallit Nunaat, land of the Greenlanders, so they all seemed to have the same idea. Fact number 49. Iceland, it's not so icy. While we're this far north, we might as well look at Iceland because there's a contradiction here too. Only 10 to 15% of the island is actually icy. The first settlers seemed to know this and called it Snowland. Then it was called Garðarsholmur, or Garðar's Isle, after one of the early arrivals. Next came a Viking named Hrafna-Flóki Vilgarðarsson, and the place took a lot from him. His daughter drowned on the journey there. After that, his livestock died of starvation in the harsh winter. A depressed Floki climbed a mountain trying to find anything good about this place, but only found a fjord full of ice. So he called it Iceland. The name stuck, but didn't discourage mass settlement. One of his crew members said it was so rich that butter dripped from every blade of grass. Maybe he should have tried renaming it Butterland. Number 48. Discovering new found lands. The Vikings weren't the only ones to give nonsensical names to things in the far north. About 500 years later, Europe's Great Age of Discovery began, and a naming frenzy followed. Just 5 years after Columbus, the English-employed explorer John Cabot landed on the island that King Henry VII would call Newfoundland. But like the other newly discovered places, it was only newly found land to Europeans. There were already people living there. At the time, these were the roughly 700 members of the Beothuk tribe. But no one knows what name they gave the island because they're all gone now. In this case, the victors wrote history. England would have less luck further to the west, though. Number 47. War was the reason the US bought Alaska. Alaska is the biggest state in the Union, but it's over 500 miles away from the continental United States. So why was America interested? After all, the deal to buy it from Russia in 1867 was so controversial it was called Seward's Folly. Blame Canada and the Crimean War for the geographical weirdness. The United States tried to get Canada before. It failed in both the Revolution and War of 1812, but that didn't mean it wanted to give up. As early as 1848, future Secretary of State William Seward was writing about Americans being destined to roll resistless waves to the ice barriers of the North. Fortunately for him, Russia lost the Crimean War. That meant both Russia and the United States were wary of Britain adding Alaska to its North American territory, so they agreed on the transaction. Alaska's geographical story is far from the weirdest, though. Number 46. Upper Michigan Peninsula Problems. Look at a map, and you might think that what locals call the UP of Michigan, or the Upper Peninsula, should be part of Wisconsin. That would make geographical sense, but it wouldn't be in the interest of peace. Go back to the 1780s. The newly independent United States acquired the Northwest Territory and intended carving it up into 5 states. Ohio was the first of these, with statehood in 1803, but things were far from harmonious at the time. The people of Michigan weren't happy when the chance for statehood finally came, because they thought Ohio's border was too far to the north. They wanted Ohio's strip of land under Lake Erie to themselves, including the city of Toledo. Ohio and Michigan called up their militias and nearly came to blows. That's when Congress stepped in. Ohio would keep Toledo, but Michigan got the UP as compensation. Wisconsin wasn't happy, but they didn't go to war over it. Number 45. Maryland's strange shape. You've probably noticed how weirdly shaped Maryland is. Some of it looks like it should be in Pennsylvania or West Virginia, right? At its narrowest, there's only a 1-mile buffer between those two states. That's because Maryland has lost every border dispute it's ever had. The original 1632 border was set at 40 degrees north. The southern border was the Potomac's entire north branch, and it's all downhill from there. 50 years later, Pennsylvania's southern border was set at 40 degrees north, but the surveyor used a bad map and went further south. The result was Cresap's War in the 1730s. The dispute was settled with the creation of the Mason-Dixon line. As a result, Philadelphia is not in Maryland, and Western Maryland looks pretty weird. Maryland also once claimed all of the Delmarva Peninsula it shares with Delaware, but it was a Catholic-governed colony, and the formerly Dutch Protestants in Delaware wanted none of that. The border was placed 23 miles further south than it should have been. More land at the southern end of the peninsula was then lost to Virginia. Then, Maryland lost more land to create Washington, D.C. Number 44. Oklahoma's Panhandle origins. Maryland is far from the only state to have strange borders. Some of them reflect a much darker part of American history, the legacy of slavery. Did you ever wonder why Oklahoma has such a narrow panhandle? It's 167 miles long, but only 34.5 miles wide, and it's so thinly populated it used to be called no man's land. So why isn't it just part of Texas? Because Texas upset the delicate balance of power when it joined the Union as a slave state. The 1820 Missouri Compromise set Missouri's southern border as the northern limit to where slavery would be permitted in the territories left over from the Louisiana Purchase. If you look closely, you'll see that the Panhandle exactly lines up with Missouri's border. That's because Texas gave up a lot of the northern territory it claimed in the Compromise of 1850. And to protect the Cherokee, Kansas's border with Texas was moved just a little further north, leaving an odd rectangle called the Neutral Strip. It stayed that way until 1890, when it was finally attached to the Oklahoma Territory. Number 43. Idaho's Gold Rush Routes. Let's go a little further north. Doesn't Idaho's Panhandle look like it should be part of Washington? It actually once was. All of Idaho was. But in 1860, settlers found gold in the current Panhandle. People poured in from California, and they started to demand local government. Washington's legislature didn't want to move the capital east from Olympia, so Congress stepped in and created the Idaho Territory in 1863, which included the Panhandle. The gold was too much for the Washingtonians to handle. The Alabamans put up stiffer resistance. Number 42. The Florida or Alabama Panhandle. Why didn't the Florida Panhandle go to Alabama? Look back to 1763, when Britain gained control of Florida from Spain. West Florida, which now includes the Panhandle, saw a flood of English-speaking settlers, a lot of whom came from what would be Alabama, which is why they share cultural similarities to this day. Spain got Florida back at the end of the Revolution, but couldn't hold on to it after the Louisiana Purchase. Florida became a state with the old West Florida borders from colonial times intact. The culturally Alabaman settlers petitioned for it to go to Alabama 7 times between 1811 and 1901, and Montgomery offered to buy it more than once. Florida said no in all cases. Oh well, at least they didn't sue each other over it. That's not the case with this next one. Number 41. Ellis Island's boundaries. For millions of immigrants, Ellis Island was the gateway to a new life with New York as the starting point. But most of it is actually in New Jersey. In 1834, the two states agreed on a boundary at the middle of the Hudson River and the middle of New York Bay. Back then, Ellis Island was about 2 3/4 acres in size. It fell on the New Jersey side of the line, but it was considered New York's. All submerged lands surrounding the island would be New Jersey's. Sounds complicated, right? Well, it's about to get worse. In 1890, the federal government began filling submerged land around the island so it could be used as an immigration station. It grew to 27.5 acres in 1906. New Jersey claimed ownership of all the new land, but so did New York. The Supreme Court settled the dispute in 1998, ruling that New Jersey has sovereignty over all the filled land, while the natural portion belonged to New York. That includes most of the main immigration building, but only parts of the other sites. They're all now an exclave surrounded by New Jersey territory. Fact number 40. Lady Liberty's home state. You might have guessed by now that this same standard applies to Liberty Island, home of the Statue of Liberty. This symbol of New York is actually on the New Jersey side of the state line, but the island is an exclave of New York, and the state of New York can still collect sales taxes there. Tough luck for New Jersey. There are other exclaves in the United States, including one that might be America's biggest geographical oddity. Fortunately, it isn't something anyone would fight over. Number 39. Kentucky Bend's earth-shaking beginnings. When you look at the Kentucky Bend, you might think that it should belong to Missouri or Tennessee, but somehow it's still part of Kentucky. This tiny patch of land is only 27 square miles, and 9 of those are water. So how did it end up like this? Turns out it's all thanks to a massive natural disaster. The state of Kentucky was once part of Virginia, and Tennessee was once part of North Carolina. Their boundary was agreed on in 1665. Independence didn't change that. Statehood didn't change it either. But earthquakes did. The New Madrid earthquakes shook the place in late 1811 and early 1812. They measured as high as 8 on the Richter scale and were powerful enough to ring church bells in Boston. The nearby town of New Madrid sank, and the Mississippi River's course altered. The early surveyors didn't seem to know how to assess the damage, and so the new boundary was drawn the way it is today. It doesn't matter too much nowadays, only 9 people lived there in 2020. Fact number 38. Ecusay, East Timor, or Indonesia. Now it's time to take a hop over to the old world. There are a lot of strange enclaves there. Let's start in Asia. If you can find Ecusay on a map, you'd think it was part of Indonesia, but it's East Timor. The geographical oddity is a legacy of European imperialism. The Dutch and Portuguese differed on the extent of their territorial holdings in the area. No surprise there, but it was settled in 1915. This exclave was part of the Portuguese holdings, while the Dutch controlled Indonesia. That didn't seem to matter when Indonesia occupied formerly Portuguese East Timor in the 1970s, but it regained its independence in 2002. Ecusay was part of that. The story might not be over, though. Indonesia has recently argued that the hamlet of Naktuka on the western edge shouldn't have been part of the old Portuguese territory. Things are much more complicated in Western Asia. Fact number 37. Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. Armenia and Azerbaijan went to war not too long ago. Their borders are complicated. Say hello to the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, a part of Azerbaijan that borders Armenia, Turkey, and Iran, but is separated from the rest of it. Baku has expressed a desire to link this area with its main territory, and Turkey's President Erdogan also said that he wanted to see a corridor directly linking his country with mainland Azerbaijan. Europe's increasing desire to forge energy deals with Azerbaijan also adds to the tension. If there's another war that breaks out over territory, it could come over this little piece of land. Number 36. Angola's Enclave. There's another resource-rich exclave that's creating tension in the world. It's Angola's Cabinda province, which is a little dot surrounded by the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like in Asia, the mess comes from European imperialism. Portugal had trading posts here before signing a treaty with the chiefs of Kakongo, Loanga, and Ngoyo in 1885. It made their territories part of a protectorate called Portuguese Congo, the precursor to modern Angola. Cabinda gradually merged with this territory, and that's why it remains even after Portugal left. Not everyone was happy though. Some of the locals fought a guerrilla war until 2006. Angola is willing to put up with the danger because the place's oil provides 2/3 of the energy revenue that powers its economy. Move far to the north and you'll find an exclave that was once part of a war, but is now, thankfully, an amusing curiosity. Fact number 35. Spanish town in France. If you can find the town of Yvia, you'd think it should be French, but it's not. It's a Spanish town stranded in France. Even with the Pyrenees, France and Spain never agreed on a border, so they went to war between 1635 and 1659. The Treaty of the Pyrenees ended the fight, but the border still wasn't clear. The treaty vaguely said that 33 villages in the disputed area would go to France, Jivia was one of them, but the Spaniards argued it was a town, not a village, so there was a compromise. Spain kept the town, but France got a nearby valley. It wasn't always smooth sailing from there, though. General Franco had to request permission from France to take the town in the 1930s, and there was some controversy over road building in the 1970s. Things did get smoother, though, with the implementation of the EU's Schengen area in 1985. Number 34. Island swap. There's another odd legacy of the Treaty of the Pyrenees, which you might find even harder to believe. Far to the west of Jivia, there's Pheasant Island. It's smack dab in the middle of the treaty line. So, who controls it? Both countries, really. Spain is in charge from February to July, while France takes over between August and January. Thankfully, no one lives on it. It was instead used for royal romances, of sorts. Both Louis XIV and Louis XV met their chosen brides there, although number 15 never married his betrothed. So much for romance. Fact number 33. A piece of Spain in Africa. Spain has exclaves everywhere. 2 cities in Morocco, Ceuta and Melilla. They're popular tourist destinations, but the Moroccans dispute Spain's ownership of them, which dates back from the 15th and 16th centuries. Ceuta even withstood a 30-year siege in the 18th century. Morocco hasn't given up, though. In May of 2021, Moroccan guards let over 8,000 immigrants cross into the cities in one day to apply pressure to the Spaniards. Spain still rejects any Moroccan claims to the cities. Let's move north to a more peaceful exclave. Number 32. Italy's Swiss town. There's a part of Italy in Switzerland. This is Campione d'Italia. It's less than a mile from Italy's border, although you'll need to drive 15.5 miles to reach Como, the nearest Italian town of significance. It's small, only a square mile opposite the Swiss city of Lugano across the lake. But this oddity has an ancient origin. The town has been around since Roman times. In 777, the local lord left his property to the Archbishop of Milan, which meant it became a papal state. It stayed that way until 1,000 years later, when Switzerland got control of the surrounding area. Italy absorbed the papal states 100 years later, which included this exclave. The modern name dates back to Mussolini, because he wanted to make its Italian status clear. Let's go north, to the border between Belgium and the Netherlands. This place was always complicated. Royal inheritances, wars of religion, stuff like that. You'd think those issues would be solved today, but take a close look. The Dutch municipality of Baarle-Nassau hosts almost 22 Belgian enclaves. They look like amoeba on a map, with Dutch exclaves at the core of the amoeba. The borders even run through individual buildings. The confusion dates back to 1831, when Belgium declared independence from the Netherlands. The mess was so complicated that the borders weren't finalized until 1995. The local people and leaders try to make the best of it, and today, the situation is seen as an example of how 2 different countries can live so closely together in peace. Fact number 30. India and Bangladesh's enclaves dispute. Even the Belgian-Dutch border has nothing on India's recent border with Bangladesh. You've probably noticed its odd shape, but that's hardly the entire story. When the British partitioned India, they left 162 enclaves between it and what became Bangladesh. They could be small as an acre or as large as 10 square miles, and there were enclaves within enclaves. Sometimes the border even went through small houses. India and Bangladesh finally began exchanging them in 2015. Number 29. Kaliningrad, one of the most heavily armed places in the world. There's an even more politically complicated exclave back in Europe, one that hopefully won't be part of a modern war. This is Kaliningrad, and it's one of the most heavily armed places in the world. Kaliningrad used to be part of Germany and was called Königsberg, which the Polish corridor cut off from the mainland. When the Red Army took it at the end of World War II, Stalin insisted on keeping it. Russia retained Kaliningrad after the Soviet Union's collapse because it was part of the former Russian Soviet Socialist Republic. Stalin made sure to expel the Germans there and repopulate it with Russians. That's why the Germans didn't raise an eyebrow when it stayed Russian after 1991. Maybe they wish they had today. Number 28. The Black Forest. The Germans have a much more valuable treasure inside their borders, the Black Forest. It's a beautiful place, full of charming villages amid lush, green scenery, but that's probably why it gets its deceptive name. The trees can grow very thick here. There's a 100-mile stretch of pine trees that's so dense, the sun struggles to reach the forest floor. That can be a scary experience. The Romans seem to have been spooked, so they gave it the name Silva Nigra, Latin for Black Forest. You probably won't have to worry about fighting a tough Germanic warrior in these dense woods, though. Go there today, and you'll get to enjoy some Black Forest cake. Number 27. The Dead Sea is alive. Far to the east of the Black Forest lies the Dead Sea, but the name is wrong on both counts. It's not a sea, it's technically a saltwater lake, and it's not dead. Sure, you won't see any fish or plant life there. It's so dense with salt you can't even dive in it. But there's a lot of microbes there, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, or maybe bacteria-eat archaea world. Salt-loving archaea adapted to survival in this harsh environment, but so did bacteria by eating the corpses of archaea. The Dead Sea is actually a testament to how survivable life really is. Number 26. Lake Tahoe's deceiving name. There's another lake that doesn't have the most descriptive name. You've probably heard of Lake Tahoe, that borders California and Nevada. Its name means big water in the Washoe language, but it's actually pretty small, at only 191 square miles. It won't make any lists of the world's biggest lakes. Big water might have been better named deep water instead, because where it lacks in size, it makes up in volume. It has a depth of 1,644 feet, the second deepest in the United States, which adds up to a volume of 37.4 cubic miles. It has more volume than any other lake in the US, except for the 5 Great Lakes. Number 25. Buffalo, New York's name. Speaking of the Great Lakes, we already know that they gave rise to bustling cities. Toledo was one, Buffalo, New York is another. When you hear that name, you might think of it as a tribute to the great herds of bison that once roamed North America. Buffalo wasn't named for them, though. It was named after Buffalo Creek, now called the Buffalo River. But no one really knows how the river got its name. The only thing that everyone seems to agree on is that it was first marked on a map in 1762. Theories range from desperate explorers stealing a horse from the Native Americans and serving it to their party by the river, claiming it was buffalo meat, to the more plausible idea that white settlers met an old native man over there, learned his name, and gave it to the river. Who knows? Number 24. The Blue Red Sea. Let's get back east. There's another famous body of water that has an odd name. The Red Sea is one of the world's busiest trade routes, but no one that goes through this place actually thinks the water is red. It's usually a nice azure. The name might come from red tie algae blooms, but it could also refer to sea sawdust, a type of bacteria that flourishes near the surface. Or it could be a much more ancient reference to the color red, which also stood for geographic south in ancient languages. Like the Buffalo River all the way in New York, no one really knows for sure. Number 23. The Black Mountain. Montenegro is known for its great beaches and green mountains. So why is it literally called Black Mountain? Probably because of a combination of things. An 11th century papal epistle made the first known use of the term Montenegro. 200 years later, Serbian King Stefan Uroš I mentioned the name Crna Gora, which literally translates as Black Mountain. By the 15th century, the region had been divided. The Venetians held the coast, while the interior was under the control of the Principality of Zeta. To protect themselves from the advancing Ottoman Turks, they established a new capital at the foot of Mount Lovćen. It was a smart defensive move, but it made life difficult for Venetian merchants, who had to cross what they described as a dark mountain to reach the market. The Italian name stuck, and that's how Montenegro got its name. Number 22. The Blue Mountains. We've heard about black and green mountains, but what about blue? Well, they exist, but only because of an optical illusion. The Blue Mountains were formed in what is now New South Wales, Australia, over 2 million years ago, and there's something special about them. There's a blue haze overhead, but it's not because of the mountains like the name implies. They aren't blue. They just host a lot of eucalyptus trees. These trees have leaves covered in glands that secrete an oil which is useful for protecting them against pests. That means there's a lot of oil droplets to go around. They interact with water vapor and dust particles in the atmosphere and refract sunlight. When it reaches the human eye, it appears blue. It's a trick, but makes for a memorable name, much more distinctive than Carmarthen Mountains or Lansdowne Hill, right? That's what one of the place's early governors wanted to call them in 1788. Sometimes, it's best to let nature run its course. Fact number 21. Wyoming, Pennsylvania? Wyoming has a surprisingly roundabout origin. It's not named after a mountain, but after a valley in Pennsylvania. The Wyoming Valley was carved out by the Susquehanna River, and in 1754, the Iroquois sold it to a Connecticut-based company. Other tribes, including the Delaware, who may have given the valley its name, weren't consulted. Some say Wyoming comes from a Delaware word meaning at the Big Plains. Others trace it to an Algonquin phrase meaning large prairie place. The land deal fizzled out, thanks to the French and Indian War and later the American Revolution. By 1782, Pennsylvania had taken over. Decades later, in 1865, a congressman named James M. Ashley, who had grown up in the Wyoming Valley, suggested the name Wyoming Territory for the area out west. But when he actually visited, he was unimpressed, reportedly complaining, "Not 1 acre in 1,000 can be irrigated." Fact number 20. China's Americatown. There's a Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in China. Leave Beijing, go past the Great Wall, and you'll find it. It's full of old Western-style buildings, a church, cowboys, and Route 66. No one bothered telling the architect that Route 66 doesn't go through Wyoming, but apparently the place does pretty well. It has 10,000 residents, and some homes there sold for $2 million. Not all of China's copycat cities can say that, though. More on them shortly. Fact number 19. The world's smallest country. What if a country could be smaller than a city? Look at the Vatican and you'd think it was in Rome, but it's not. It's a country surrounded by Rome. It's the world's smallest country, but why is it that way? It's the only leftover territory from the Papal States, with its status carefully negotiated by the Lateran Treaties of 1929. It has full international recognition and sovereignty over its own territory. That's why it makes more sense to call this place its own country than a city, which is usually defined as a large population center, which the Vatican isn't. But Vatican City isn't the only country surrounded by another. Number 18, friendly San Marino. San Marino is another country completely surrounded by Italy, so you might not find it on a map. It's only 24 square miles with 33,000 people. So how did it stay independent? It has a long history of perfect diplomacy. It escaped Napoleon because he liked its leader. When the great Italian unifier, Giuseppe Garibaldi, was surrounded by Austrian troops, he and his men sought shelter in San Marino. He never forgot what it did for him and paid it back when it requested to stay independent. It was neutral in World War I, but sent 10 medical assistants to the Italian army to stay on Rome's good side. Then it flirted with fascism, mirroring Mussolini's rise and fall almost to the day. The mirroring trick has clearly worked. Number 17. Little Lesotho. Have you noticed a little circle in South Africa? That's Lesotho. Why is it that way? Well, it's another legacy of European imperialism. South Africa was highly coveted in the 19th century. The Sotho people who lived there united into a defensive state called Basutoland, which shouldn't be surprising given the shape. They tried to hold off both the British and the Boers, but the British didn't like the Boers either, so they made it a protectorate. That wasn't the end of the story, though. A lot of fighting and compromise was still to come, but Lesotho was kept separate from the Union of South Africa that formed in 1910. In 1966, it gained independence. Let's stay with Lesotho. It holds another geographical curiosity. Number 16. Skiing in Africa. When you think about winter sports, you don't think of Africa. So why does Lesotho host one of the continent's few ski resorts? Look to that east border with South Africa, with the Drakensberg Mountains. The highest peak is 11,000 feet above sea level. The highest pub in all of Africa is there too, at only 2,000 feet lower. There's a much less hospitable place on another continent, but the locals have adapted well. Number 15. Kazakhstan's space base. Far to the north of Lesotho lies a strange geopolitical outpost, Baikonur. Technically, it's part of Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan doesn't run it. Russia does. The city and surrounding area are leased by Russia, which pays $115 million in rent each year to maintain control until at least 2050. The encircled territory is valuable for its space base, which dates back to Soviet times. Number 14. The Jewish Oblast. Did you know that there's an explicitly Jewish region in Russia? It's the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. The Soviet Union created it in the 1920s as part of a celebration of the new nation's ethnic diversity. It's the world's first modern Jewish area. It's in the Far East, near the Chinese border. 25% of its population was Jewish at its peak in the late 1940s, but it was badly located. In the summer, you had swamps and insects. In the winter, you had Siberian temperatures. The Soviets weren't good at imitating Jewish culture either. They thought that the use of Yiddish would suffice, and by 1991, few Jews remained. The 2021 Russian census put its population at a little over 150,000, with only 837 Jews left, even though the oblast retains its status. Number 13. Underground Down Under. Brave Australia's outback, and you can find Coober Pedy. Population 2,500. You'll first notice normal-looking buildings, but that's not where people actually live. Since it's sometimes 130 degrees outside, the real town is 13 feet underground. You need to go through the ordinary buildings to get to it. There, you can enjoy the shops, restaurants, and even an Orthodox church cut into the rock. Fact number 12, Japan's Ghost Island. Coober Pedy is harsh, but people actually live there. That's not the case with Japan's Ghost Island, Hashima, near Nagasaki. It used to be a boomtown. Japan discovered high-quality coal there, but it's a harsh environment. You can expect rogue waves, high winds, and frequent typhoons. In 1931, the island was fortified against the elements, with better amenities for workers and their families. But the sea made for air with 95% humidity, which made coal fumes stick to the skin of residents. Workers there were paid more than their mainland counterparts, but it wasn't enough. So, Japan forced captive Chinese and Korean laborers to do the worst tasks. Japan has never acknowledged this wrongdoing. People gradually left after the war, and the island was finally closed in the 1970s. Today, it's a controversial World Heritage Site and tourist attraction. It's far from the only ghost town in the region. Number 11. China's British Experience. There's a place called Thames Town just outside of Shanghai. It's supposed to duplicate the London experience. There's Tudor architecture, the iconic red phone booths, statues of Winston Churchill and, of all things, Harry Potter, and there's even security guards dressed in the famous Bobby uniforms. But no one really lives in Thames Town. The place is mostly used by couples to take wedding photos. Number 10. The Venice of the East. A lot of places say they're the Venice of the East, but China has actually built a mock Venice. It's part of the port city of Dalian, but a positive social media reception didn't mean people actually wanted to live there, despite the seemingly authentic-looking Renaissance buildings. Some were abandoned before completion, and the canals are sometimes dry. The Chinese weren't the only ones to have this idea, though. Number 9. Another day, another Venice. Qatar built its own fake Venice in 2012. It was troubled from the get-go. A major fire broke out that May, which saw the deaths of 19 people. Despite this, it is more successful than China's version of Venice, although few people go there in the daytime, and some travelers complain about it being gaudy. At least there's working gondolas, though. Number 8. The Big Apple in China. You might have guessed by now that China tried building a fake New York too, but it might be the most disastrous of the mimicries. It's near Tianjin, and work began in 2008. There were supposed to be mock-ups of New York landmarks like Rockefeller Center, the pre-9/11 Twin Towers, and even the Hudson River, but many of the buildings are unfinished and the streets are now empty. By 2017, Tianjin was hoping to use its free trade zone status and a coming high-speed rail line with Beijing to finally attract residents, but now it's 2025, and there's still no sign of success. Number 7. Hallstatt, China. If big city life isn't for you, there's Hallstatt, Austria. Near the Alps and Lake Hallstatt, there are few more scenic places. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for a reason. But there's also one in China, which it revealed in 2012. It's part of the Guangdong province. Today, it is another ghost town, although one that's popular for more of those wedding photos. Number 6. Bonjour, China. As you might have guessed, there's also a fake Paris in China too. That's the city of Tianducheng, right outside of Hangzhou. It imitated everything from the gardens of Versailles to the layout of the streets, the buildings around them, and even the lampposts. Unfortunately, the Chinese haven't taken a liking to it, as you also might have guessed by now. It's yet another of China's ghost cities, and only tourists come here. Number 5. Zhuriha Training Base. China has one more fake Eiffel Tower, but it won't attract tourists. It's part of China's biggest military base, the Zhuriha Training Base in Inner Mongolia. Its Eiffel Tower is part of another mock city, that of downtown Taipei. Your guess is as good as ours as to why China chose to build it, but the rest of the layout is easy enough to understand. The mimicry includes Taiwan's presidential palace. Chinese troops are training there to practice for a potential operation into Taipei. Pictures have circulated of troops storming the place. But if an operation were to occur against Taiwan, it probably wouldn't start in Taipei. It would start at an island that looks like it's in the wrong place. Number 4. Kinmen, Taiwan. When you think of Taiwan, you probably only think of the main island. There are others though. Kinmen is only 4 miles away from the Chinese mainland, but it's under Taiwan's control. If a fight over Taiwan starts, it would likely be here. The place was regularly shelled until 1978. There's so many spent shells around that local craftsmen have turned the shards into knives that are popular souvenirs. Number 3. The disputed Korean Islands. Speaking of islands in the wrong place, let's take a trip to the equally contested Korean Peninsula, ones which actually saw recent conflict. There are 5 islands in the Yellow Sea off the coast of North Korea. You'd think they're part of the Hermit Kingdom then, but they aren't. They're in South Korea. Yeongpyeong is only 1.8 miles away. The North Koreans have claimed the island and have shelled it more than once, most recently with 200 shots in January of 2024. A worse incident happened in 2010, when 2 South Korean Marines and 2 civilians were killed. The year before that, North and South Korean ships exchanged fire near Daecheong Island, which is only 12 miles away from North Korea. There are other islands in unusual places, and they're increasingly the source of tension. Number 2. France's far reach. About 18% of France's territory and 2.6 million people are overseas. There are 13 territories. The closest is St. Pierre and Miquelon, an archipelago off the coast of the misnamed Newfoundland. They're almost 2,500 miles away. The furthest is New Caledonia in Oceania, over 10,500 miles away. But these overseas territories are starting to push back against French rule. In South America, French Guiana is calling for more autonomy. Reunion, Guadeloupe, and Martinique are voicing similar demands. In New Caledonia, tensions flared when France attempted to change voting laws, sparking unrest over a move that would let long-term French residents vote in local elections. Meanwhile, in French Polynesia, a pro-independence party has already taken power. France wants to keep them all. These regions give France the world's largest exclusive economic zone, which means it has a monopoly on all of the maritime resources nearby. Look at a map, and you'd think those resources shouldn't go to faraway France, but under international law, they do. That's a lot to lose. And finally, fact number 1, yesterday and tomorrow islands. By now, we know it's possible to be in 2 different countries at once, but can you be in 2 different times at once? Well, sort of. Go back to Alaska. Seward's Folly set the maritime border between Russia and the United States between Big Diomede Island and Little Diomede Island. They're only 2.5 miles apart, but the time difference between them is 20 or 21 hours, depending on daylight savings time. This is due to the International Dateline running right on the border in the space between them. So if it's March 14th on Little Diomede Island, it's March 15th just 2.5 miles away. That's why they're nicknamed Yesterday and Tomorrow Island. So if you take a boat from one of the islands and lie down across the border, you can live in 2 days at once. Sort of. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.